More with Jeff Carlson on taking control of your Apple Watch. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by Notion AI, the one tool that does it all. Try Notion AI for free at notion.com/MacVoices.
So another example of something that's new, there's a new check-in feature. And this is through the Messages app. And basically, I don't know, how many people watching this have had a parent or a spouse or somebody who you go and you have dinner at their place and they say as you're leaving, well, give me a call when you get home. Like my dad used to do this all the time. Like, text me when you get home, because it was about a 40 minute drive from his house. And usually I'd remember. Sometimes if it was late, I'd forget. And now we have Find My. So like, for example, like my mom will pick up the phone and just see where everybody is, like where all of her children and grandchildren are. Only a little creepy, but not super creepy. So what check-in does, it leverages all these technologies so that when you, as a real life example, we were gone last weekend. We actually went to visit my mom in Northern California, flew home, picked up our car from parking, and I initiated a check-in to basically say, like, send her a message when we get home. And it's got some smarts to it. So you can either just say, like, do a check-in after an hour. But in this case, I was going somewhere. And it figured out that I was probably going to be going home, just based on my schedule, based on where I was, all sorts of things. So the way you do it is you start a new message and you tap the little plus button, and it gives you like all the little apps and the message apps, and there's a check-in. And so it popped up this little thing to send her, and it said, notify her when I reach a destination, and the destination was home. And so she got that. And we drove home, and as soon as we pulled up in my driveway, it changed and it had alerted her to say that we had reached our destination. So that's just like a nice little convenience, but it can go further than that. So you can also do it, say, when you're doing a workout. So let's say you are going on a trail run and you're going to be gone for an hour. You can do a check-in for somebody if you're out running by yourself. And so that when you come back home, it'll send a little check-in to that person. Now, if you don't either get to your destination or you've set a timer and you haven't gotten there at the time, then the person gets alerted. Oh, well, the check-in hasn't happened yet. And then you can see where the person is. And, in a extreme example, if they still haven't checked in, then it can escalate up to the point of having it call emergency services. Maybe you've, passed out on the trail, or, who knows what terrible thing might have happened, but it'll use your location. It will alert the authorities. It'll call the person that you checked in with, and, go through the steps that could, save somebody either some trouble or save their life or whatever. Little tiny feature that actually was really helpful, that hopefully you'll never have to use, but it's also super convenient to just say, hey, you asked me to check in. Here I am. Everything's good. I didn't have to remember, and I'm going to bed now. That kind of a thing.
It's not a small thing, Jeff, and unfortunately in the world we live in today, I mean, there are a lot of people that they want to know that whether man, woman, child, brother, sister, father, daughter, son, whatever, it's kind of nice to know that they got to where they were going. And the creepiness, I know you were joking. And yeah, that could be overdone, but
Yeah.
still the idea that that option is there and nobody has to use it, or you can, and look, if you really are creeped by it out, then either A, turn it off, or B, just take the watch off. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you consider the benefits of it. And,
Yeah.
the notifications that when things can go wrong, you've got a lot of help right on your wrist.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also doing things in a smart way. So, for example, I mentioned Glenn Fleischman earlier. I was going to go have dinner at his house several weeks ago, and it was on my calendar. So when I left, it popped up a thing saying, "Do you want to let Glenn know when you're going to be there?" And so, like, I think it was check-in that popped up. But like it's seeing that I'm in the car now and I'm headed in that direction, and so maybe I want to, alert the person that I am probably going to see when my expected arrival time would be. Little cool things like that. That, like I said, tiny details that can add just a little bit of benefit to your life. And and as it turned out, traffic was terrible, the weather was terrible, and I was really late. But he knew that, so it was like no big deal.
It's all this plays. I can't help but bring this up that Apple was allegedly so far behind in machine learning and the loosest terms of AI, the loosest definitions of AI. And the fact is that they've been doing a lot of this stuff just quietly and integrating it in slowly but surely into their
Yeah.
product. And maybe it was their fault for not publicizing and making a bigger deal out of it. But I try to remind folks of that no, Apple's not behind in AI. It's just not waving the banner, and
Yeah.
now we have Apple Intelligence. And so now the banner is being waved, and we hope that it can live up to it. But on the other hand, I feel like I'm already seeing so many benefits. I get in my car and my phone has a pretty good idea of where I'm going on what day, at what time, which is, that's kind of creepy too. But on the other hand, there are conveniences to it. So it's just all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the creepiness is mitigated by the fact that all this stuff is being done on the device. So, Apple doesn't know that you are going to, okay, for example, my teenager does fencing. And so at a specific time every week, we get in the car, drive to fencing, and I go to the Starbucks across the street to hang out and do some work and read or whatever until fencing's over. Well, now if it's like during the summer there was no fencing, I get in my car right about that time, and it's like, oh well, it's going to take you 14 minutes to get to that Starbucks. And I was like, oh right, because like that is a pattern that I had established. So something like that actually can be super helpful. I mean, not necessarily that I need to go to Starbucks, but if you are visiting a relative once a week at a specific time, like it will know that, and maybe it will say, it'll take you 25 minutes to get there, and it'll give you an alternate route because traffic is backed up on the main route, things like that. And it's not me having to chase that information. It's being presented to me, and I can ignore it if I want, but it's not me on a crowded freeway realizing, oh, I really should have looked up a different route or looked to see whether this was going to take a long time. It's kind of just like nudging proactively, which is kind of what you want with something like a watch, because it's supposed to be unobtrusive. It's supposed to be this thing that you reference. You're not using it like a phone. So I don't know. I get super geeky about this because I have to dive into the details, but it's a lot of cool stuff, right? I mean, another tiny thing that I just think is super cool, and maybe people aren't going to use this, but because I upgraded to the Series 10, I think the Series 9 also did this. It has an ultra-wideband chip inside, which means that if I've misplaced my phone, so ever since the beginning, you can tap this little ping iPhone in the control center, and your phone will play a chime, and you wander around listening to it, trying to find where you set your phone down. Well, because there's an ultra-wideband chip in the watch, and there's one in my phone, I have the 16 Pro, I can do that, and it will give me that same Find My interface, like if you're looking for an AirTag. So it'll tell me, like, you need to go this way, and it's probably 40 feet in this direction, and lead you to it rather than, just banging on with the bing, 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 bing that annoys everybody. So, like, super useful and better than it was before. And I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up, sorry. I was going to bring up one more thing.
Please.
You mentioned hardware. The Series 10 actually has a really good speaker for whatever reason. And so you can play music through the speaker on your watch and it sounds good. Now, the side note to that is, please don't play music out of your speaker on your watch when you're around other people, because it's super annoying. But you can do it. Like, maybe they have like some future plan for that, but or I mean, it could just be, you're getting a phone call on your wrist or something like that. But hey, as a result, there's now a volume control in Control Center that only applies to media and things like that. Who knew? Why would you want to do that? I don't know, but it's there and it's in my book. So there you go.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I did that quite by accident. And I felt like because I've taken calls on my watch, and
yep.
And I think they sound better than my 7, which was not exactly a surprise, but it's the kind of thing you don't really think about. It's like, hey, I can really now absolutely tell who the person is. It's not just a voice, but I can tell who it is.
Right.
And then I accidentally hit the music part, and much to my surprise, that's very listenable. Because you've been able to listen to podcasts, at least in theory, on your watch for a long time, but now you can do it. Now I'm with you. Please do not be listening to everything, but it's a nice convenience to have if you're around the house alone, or in the basement or in the garage or something, and you want to be listening to something one way for whatever reason. So I've been very happy. I wasn't quite sure I should do the upgrade, and now I'm just immensely happy I did.
Yeah, same here.
Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Notion AI, the one tool that does it all. Try Notion for free at notion.com/MacVoices. The new Notion AI is a single AI tool that does it all. Search across Notion and other apps, generate docs in your own style, analyze PDFs and images, and chat with you about anything. Sure, you can do most of those things in a bunch of different apps, and that's the point. A bunch of different apps. With Notion, you are working in one space where everything is right there, ready for you to be productive. You can search across all types of documents right in Notion and find what you're looking for. Over half the Fortune 500 companies and their teams use Notion. You know that they could use anything, and they use Notion. Shouldn't you be using Notion? Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/MacVoices. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MacVoices, to try the powerful, easy-to-use Notion AI today. And when you use my link, you're supporting my show. Notion.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Notion for supporting MacVoices. Jeff, any other highlights or any other things that really jump out at you from the book?
Little annoying things that you may not run into that I ran into. Like, for example, there's a new Photos watch face. So before, we've been able to use your own photos as the image behind the watch hands or the number. And so Apple made a new one. Well, as part of that, they retired. There was a portraits watch face. And they did that because the portraits was specifically for portrait mode photos that have the depth information, and it would let you basically style it so that, like, maybe you'd have, like part of the number behind my head, so you have that depth of the time. Well, the portraits is now gone. Photos is there instead because it can just figure out its own depth map and do all that. Is that super important? No. Is somebody going to run into it? Maybe. Your old, like any of the photos faces that you had before, like they all can be upgraded to this. But my point to this is, if you used that, if you had like a rotating selection of your family pictures or whatever, you're going to run into this thing that says, well, there's a new photos thing. Do you want to upgrade it? Like, what does that mean? Well, it means, all these different things, and your old face is no longer going to be there. And, those kind of details that I don't want you to struggle through those, because I did that for you and explained it in the book, that kind of thing. The compass is a little bit different. There's a backtrack feature that works a little differently, a little better. The Maps app, they changed on the phone and in the watch, so that you now have different categories of things. You can drop more than one pin. Again, like little tiny details, but if you use that a lot, if you go hiking, you can go find a trail, go on the trail, and use the watch to help guide you on the trail. So, when you come upon a fork in the road, you'll know that the trail needs to go to the right versus to the left. Again, like little tiny things, super helpful if you need it.
I don't want to take the wrong fork in the road.
No, you really don't.
So that's not a tiny thing, Jeff.
I mean, in theory, there's a sign, but maybe the sign's washed out or whatever. I'm just looking through. I believe when you go to the Take Control website, it lists. What I'm looking at here is just the what's new in this edition list, which ended up being almost 3 pages long. You can edit and delete messages that you've sent, which is really cool. Check in with somebody. Oh, there's a whole new Translate app that I didn't really see mentioned anywhere, or maybe I just missed it. But it's super cool. If you are somewhere where you're talking to somebody and you don't speak the same language, you can basically bring up the Translate app, speak what you want, the request, and then it'll do the translation. You tap a little button and it will then speak that to the other person. So you can just have your watch in front of you and say, where is the nearest coffee? And if the person is speaking Portuguese or whatever, it will then say that to that person. And then that person, you can just switch it around, and that person will give you the reply, and then it'll translate that. And then, it'll say what that translation was in English. It's super slick. I've not had to try it in the wild. I literally was just poking through, and it's kind of ingenious, and it kind of works to that expectation of, here you are in a situation, what are you going to do about it? Oh, I have this easy way to, at least do some correspondence, some way to communicate with somebody that's not just finger gestures and, trying to find the bathroom, whatever. It's actually really kind of slick. And if you are going to be somewhere, let's say you're going to be in the middle of Italy, in Tuscany, there's no cell service, whatever. If you know that ahead of time, you can basically download the language to your watch, and everything is just happening on the watch. So you don't even need. Usually, it'll go up to the cloud and use cloud servers to get a better translation. You might not get as good of a translation when it's just offline and just on the watch, but again, you're not giving a speech. You're just trying to get directions or find out some other information. Super cool. I had no idea that was there, or maybe it was mentioned briefly, but the implementation is really straightforward, really, really cool and impressive. So yeah, just try that out.
Yeah, I did not know you could download the languages.
Yeah,
I mean, I knew that, like you say, I knew that you were using the web or I guess the internet, for the translation. I had no idea you could do it completely on device.
Yeah, okay, I think
another piece of homework from Jeff.
More homework, I know. I think before this, you would basically just use Siri, but there are some circumstances where, Siri's not available, and therefore this can be more directed. And even cooler, that I just remembered about this, if there are some phrases that you are frequently using, like, where can I find espresso? Where's some good espresso near here? Something you're going to ask in all sorts of places. Something I would ask in all sorts of places. Well, you can save that translation. So you just like scroll and say, oh yeah, where's the nearest espresso, and just play that for somebody or read it to them or something like that. So you can have like a collection of, a handful of, I'm actually not sure how many, I didn't test to see how many it would store, but it'll store a bunch of things that, common phrases that you're going to use a lot. They can just be there. You don't have to do the same request every time. Super cool. Kudos to the people at Apple who developed that and probably don't get the recognition that they deserve for it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you've given me more homework, and I do feel obligated to point. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, your homework is that you now have to go to a different country and try this out. Sorry.
Oh, good.
Okay. Those are the rules. Sorry.
Well, I feel obligated. Yeah, I feel. Oh, great! That's exciting. I feel obligated to point out, though, that you've used coffee or espresso in I don't know how many of the examples. The only one I didn't hear, from the time you get up to asking when you're traveling in a foreign country, you have this thing for coffee. I'm afraid.
I do like my coffee. Yes.
Well, there are worse things to like.
Indeed.
So the book is out. It's Take Control.
The book is out.
Apple Watch, 5th edition. Do we have pricing and all on it, Jeff?
We do, yeah. So it's the same price as it has been. It's $14.99. It runs about, I want to say, 289 pages. So you're getting a lot for that price. There's a lot in there. It's because it's Take Control. It's an ebook. There are no print versions of it. So you can, throw it on your phone, on your iPad, and have easy, ready access to it. And if you own a previous edition, check your email or log in at the Take Control site into your account, because I'm sure that there's some special pricing for people who own earlier editions. I'm not sure where the cutoff is, for the price, if it's something you bought in the last year or 4 volumes ago or whatever, but there are special pricing options available.
Perfect. Hey, before we get out of here, I want to make sure folks know where else they can find you other than just Take Control Books, because you do one or two other things.
I do one or two other things. So the main place is go to jeffcarlson.com. That's kind of where I put notes about everything that I'm working on. I also have a podcast, Photo Active, Kirk McElern and I, and I'm trying to think of how many years. We're up to episode 174. So we've been doing this now for several years. It comes out every 2 weeks. We talk about photography and Apple-specific photography, but also general photography stuff. And I've also been doing some writing lately for CNET. So if you go to cnet.com, you'll find my byline under different how-to type of things.
Great. That's one I'm just finding out about. So there's more homework. It's Jeff Carlson everywhere all the time. I like it.
That's the freelance way.
Folks, again, takecontrolbooks.com. Go and pick up Jeff's book. Go and pick up all the books that are coming out from Take Control authors as the OSs get updated and applications get updated, because it's probably your best way to find out what's new and to take full advantage of your new hardware, your new applications, the new OSs, everything. Jeff, we'll see you again next time.
Sounds good. Thanks again for having me on.
Thank you. Folks, this is Mac Voices. I'm Chuck Joyner. We'll be back with more. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.